Ugh. Brother, ugh. What's that?
Mashallah, brother.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to my channel. My name is Raiz. If you are new to the channel, please consider a subscribe, like this video if you're enjoying my content, and turn on the notification bell to keep up with my uploads. So in today's video, I will be going through a channel by the name of Happy Wife School. The title being Withholding, the top 5 ways women deny a man's needs. And this is particularly interesting because I think that there are some specific needs that wives are withholding from their husbands. And this applies to both the Islamic dynamic as well as the non-Muslim dynamic. I think it's especially prominent in the non-Muslim community, but nonetheless, it would be interesting to analyze what is being said here by the lady here and see what it is Islam have to say about it. And from with my understanding, and of course maybe make some comparisons and see what there is about this. So inshallah, let's get into it.
So what do we withhold? What do we withhold as women when we feel our husbands are not living up to who they were supposed to be to make us feel those romantic feelings of love? The main things we withhold, and again, this is conscious and malicious and purposeful denial of what we know is, one, just part of a healthy relationship, and also what's important to our husbands as good men. So the number one thing that we withhold, and I imagine everyone in the chat could type this in right now, I'm not going to look, but you would type in the number one thing that a woman withholds in a relationship or a marriage.
6.
And the number one thing that we withhold is sex. We use sex as a weapon, that when we feel that we are not being loved and made to feel loved, and those unreasonable expectations, we withhold sex. And
So this is particularly interesting because often enough we find that men are complaining about their wives withholding this particular need, which is intimacy, sex, which I think women know is a very important thing for men. And this goes hand in hand with the nature of a man and what it is he requires within a marriage, right? Within a relationship. And often enough, I think that women kind of confuse, well, it happens to both men and women, but women especially, I think, get a little bit confused as to what it is that a man actually needs. And I think that perhaps it's things that they themselves need, right? And when it comes to the biological factors, the maybe even psychological factors, men are perhaps more direct in the way in which they go about expressing the sexual requirements or these type of things, and it's somewhat, let's say, animalistic. A man is very, very direct. He is not too much influenced by emotion and these underlying and deeper meanings towards sex. Although, yes, it is an important aspect for men as well, but it's very direct, and they are, I think, more prone to wanting to engage, let's say.
And we can withhold sex by stopping having sex altogether. We can also withhold sex by not being present in sex and treating sex as a chore, sex as a burden of something that we have to do for our husbands, but we are like dead fish. And there's no engagement, and we're not there. And that is also withholding.
Just on a side note, I think that even within the Islamic community, the Muslim community, this is a very taboo subject. I find that I don't know, maybe it's an older generation thing where, and even within, I think, my generation or even younger, where we simply don't want to talk about these things. It's a very private matter, which I can understand and agree that these types of topics shouldn't be made too mainstream in a way where this becomes the highlight of let's say, mainstream discussion. But nonetheless, this is something that is very, very important and is something that is required within a marriage, a dynamic of a relationship, which I think we are not discussing well enough or engaging with well enough. And I think this is why we need to talk about these things. Yeah, just so that you can get my drift on this. And I think perhaps the lady is touching on very deeper things with regards to sexual dynamics.
Number two, I'm going to go over the top 5 ways that we withhold as women. The number one being sex. The second that we withhold is affection, and different than sex. Affection is rubbing your husband's neck while he's driving, and I might pinch my husband on his butt and be playful in that way, or cuddling while we're watching a movie, or cuddling for a little bit when we go to bed, or just, stroking the hair across his forehead. It's touch, it's affection, which is incredibly important.
From what I understand, I think I know women perhaps enjoy those type of things, and I think even with men themselves, they tend to push aside this need for this type of thing that they would that the lady's advocating for here. These types of engagements, touching, and this playful, fun type engagement. But I think it's very important, and I mean, and it goes back to the first point where the topic being that women or the wives deny the men sexual access. And similarly to this topic, Islam has an answer for all of them to the T, And I just find it so amazing that Islam does offer this type of answers, because I mean, like the lady, I take it this woman's not a Muslim, and I don't think she is, and she's giving this type of advice and whatnot. And the Prophet ﷺ, within his life, if you go through the seerah, if you go through some hadith and so on, you'll find that there's very specific answers to these types of issues.
To men, just as sex is incredibly important to a man. And when we feel we are not getting those feelings of love met in the way that we feel that they should, we withhold affection. Number 3, we withhold fun and playfulness. We all know as women that in the beginning of the relationship, we were spontaneous, we were lighthearted, we like to go out, we like to get dressed up and go have fun. And then we get the ring, we get married, we get the commitment, and that facade comes off. And I do not mean this in a crude way, but it's the best way to explain it. We get a stick up our butt in the relationship, and we become frigid and rigid, and we pull away fun and playfulness. My husband is incredibly playful. And before, I was blessed to be red-pilled and have a path to change. I withheld sex and I withheld playfulness. I wouldn't play back with my husband, and I treated him like he was immature and that he needed to grow up.
From what it seems here, I don't know if the lady's married or not, or divorced, or she seems a little bit emotional because of her past experience. And what she's saying here is that she has in the past withheld a certain type of level of commitment. Well, not commitment, but a level of engagement with her husband, who she says is perhaps playful within in the dynamic, whereas she was a bit rigid and maybe not as much engaged, or she wasn't coming to the party type of thing. It was just perhaps routine, mundane. And of course, I think, and even within the Islamic dynamic, or in the Islamic community, there are issues like this. It's unfortunate,
and it's crushing to them. It's absolutely crushing, because they can't understand what happened to the woman I married that liked to have fun and would be playful. I don't understand what I did wrong. And so it's a huge blessing to see this now and to have.
I think also that I think because women have a type of way about themselves where they tend to latch onto let's say, memories. And perhaps if an occasion was so that perhaps there was some argument, there was some type of heaviness between the husband and the wife, it's more likely that she would cling onto some type of memory and some type of emotion towards it for a very long time. Whereas men, we kind of like shrug it off. We don't take too much emotion with it. We don't keep it too much in our memory. It's just like we in the moment type of thing. And I think that is what plays in how men and women actually connect when it comes to the sexual engagement. And I think it takes a lot for a woman to unwind perhaps negative experiences or negative memories with that. And I think that's something men need to be aware of.
Re-engaged with myself and re-engaged with my husband to be playful with him again, because it's so important to him and it's simple. And why wouldn't we want that? It's a joy in ourselves and a joy of life that we withhold from our husbands, and then we also withhold from ourselves. These are the very things we withhold from ourselves. The fourth biggest way that we withhold is appreciation. We don't say thank you. We don't appreciate our husbands for all they do for us as good men. We don't appreciate their hard work. We don't appreciate their.
I think this is a very, very important aspect, especially to a man. A man naturally wants to be needed. He wants to be a provider. He wants to be the source of resources, for not only his wife but his family, his children. And it puts him in a good space when he's fulfilling that correctly. But what I think a lot of wives do is that they don't thank their husbands enough. They don't actually understand what it takes for a man to do this, especially if it is that he is doing it by himself. He is allowing his wife to, reside perhaps in a more domestic means. And I know a lot of even Muslim women would complain about the fact that, look, we don't want to be at home. We want to be out at work. We want to engage with the world and so on. But I think it's increasingly more popular now that this whole like trad movement is coming to fruition. This 1950s style setup is something that I think my generation and the younger generation, I think, are realizing is perhaps better than what it is, and which means that women are now residing at home. They want to reside at home. They are kind of like letting go of this whole feminist push to go out into the workplace. Anyway, the thing is, if it is that the man allows this and can maintain that for a woman, even then, I think that there's perhaps not a lot of appreciation for this. I think that, and especially if a woman has perhaps had little or no experience with being out in the working world, and what a difficulty it is to be in that space, to engage with people at work, to handle a boss, to handle your co-workers, to handle your colleagues, to actually do the work itself, all that hurdles and challenges that comes with fulfilling your job, your project, your day's work, and it takes a lot, and it takes a lot for a man to maintain a household in terms of its budgeting, in terms of seeing to this and that, bills, groceries, food, you name it. It's and from an Islamic perspective, this is fully on the man. This is fully on the husband. In fact, he is accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all that. Allah is going to question him. Did you do this? Did you fulfill this? Did you do so and so for your family, for your wife? And so it is a huge burden. I don't want to say burden. This is, it is a difficulty. It's not an easy thing. And a wife can simply say, look, I don't want to do this. I don't want to work. I don't want to provide. I don't want to. And she's within a full right not to do so. A man don't have that option. And because of that, if it is that a woman, is not burdened by those aspects, then I think she should still have a lot of appreciation and gratitude for her husband.
Kindness, their thoughtfulness. I had a client not too long ago, a male client. who he put up a fence in the backyard for him and his wife and worked really hard at it. It was not something that was natural to him. And he completed it and he was so excited. And he went to go get his wife to show her. And she came out and not a thank you. Wow, I can't believe you did this. Nothing. Her first comment, it's not even over there. That was a conscious and malicious behavior to withhold from him and not give him that appreciation.
That type of reaction is rough. To be fair, I will say that I see some similarity on the man's end as well, to be fair. For instance, when it is that women are engaged with the cooking and the domestic work, cleaning, clothing, whatever. And you'll get some of these guys, some of these husbands will criticize their wives cooking a bit too much, a bit too harshly. Just kind of not appreciating it on their end, I think. It's something routine, something mundane. My wife is going to make this. My wife is going to see to this. She's going to fold my clothes. She's going to, do the mopping or sweeping or whatever the case may be. And it takes work and it takes strength to do. And this is where we as husbands need to show appreciation on our end. I think the tricky thing here is, and I'm trying to be as careful as I can in saying this, is that what are the levels of what is the level of duty, right? And how is it perceived between them respectively, the husband and wife? Now, fair enough, she's at home, she's doing the cooking, she's doing the domestic work, the cleaning, and he is going out into the world and he's literally putting food on the table, he's putting the lights on, he's seeing that there's water in the taps. And this is not to disregard what a woman does at home, if it is that she is at home. But what it requires to bring in that type of resources and maintain a household is, I think, a level above, a level more so than the homework, And I think a lot of sisters will perhaps come at me and nail me for this type of rhetoric. But it is the case, and this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala perhaps grant the man just a step above in terms of authority, in terms of maintenance, And I think it's some sort of protection if you look at it really clearly, It's a protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You woman, you wife, don't go out into the world and suffer like a man should. You don't need to go into these types of difficulties and interaction and being swayed around by this and that and whoever else. Maintain your home, look after your children, and see to your husband's needs. And the Prophet ﷺ say that in of itself will lead you to Jannah, will lead you to paradise. Nothing else. Whereas men have all these type of things and engagements and he's not only his job, but his social interactions as well. He's required to go out in the world and give da'wah and go to mosque regularly, engage with the neighbors and so on. Not that a woman can't, but it's more so upon him to do so. And I think that is the difference, if you understand what I mean by that. Anyway, I'm drifting off a little bit on the topic at hand here. But this is interesting.
The fifth biggest way that we withhold is we withhold respect, which is very important to a man in a relationship. As someone said in the comments, it's more that is their way of being loved, is being validated through respect. And we withhold respect. And that can look like, pardon my language, bitching about our husbands to our girlfriends, bitching about our husbands to their mother, which is one of the biggest ways we can be disrespectful, not being honest about the budget or honest about money, saying horrible things that we think we're entitled and justified to, and we should just get away with. Those are the 5 main ways we withhold: sex, affection, fun and playfulness, appreciation, and respect. And it all stems from wanting our husbands to fill this emptiness within us that they cannot.
Yeah, I think respect is a huge thing that I think should be maintained by both men and women, husband and wife. I think it's not emphasized enough because I mean, if we look at media and these type of examples that we have in movies and whatnot, we'll see that this item of respect is not really uh, it's not really something that is propagated well enough. Well, not it's I think it's propagated to have a dynamic of disrespect and yeah, and having this poor quality of relationship between man and woman. you know Whereas if we look at the Islamic dynamic, if we look at what the Prophet ﷺ and how he maintained his relationships with his wives, there was this quality of respect. And I think it's very important that men and women have this type of respect. I think it is a difficult thing to maintain, especially considering that things can get heated between a husband and a wife when it comes to very touchy subjects. Maybe it's dynamics between families or within themselves, within the household, in terms of their children, finances, whatever. And if respect is lost and or disrespect is moved to a degree where it's difficult to return to a leveled place with regards to respect, then I think the marriage is also could be in a rocky state. But yes, this is very interesting from the lady here, and I think it's very important that even we as Muslims, as Muslim men and women, listen in on what the world is saying about their issues and reflect it back onto what we are experiencing, because in essence we are all human beings, and we are all we all have our desires and our animalistic tendencies. So there's not too much difference. The difference is that we have very clear guidance from the Quran and Sunnah. And perhaps I didn't expand much on what the Islamic rulings are or guidances are for these types of things. Nonetheless, I can say that Islam is very, very specific in how to go about sexual and relationship dynamics within a marriage. And in fact, there isn't any other type of relationship between foreign men and women. There's no such thing as dating. There's no such thing as premarital courtships or anything of that sense. It's strictly marriage, which means there is already a level of commitment that is sanctified by Allah Himself. So very interesting take. If you enjoyed that video, then please, if you enjoyed this video, then please consider a subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to keep up with my uploads. And then I'll see you in the next one, inshallah. As many of you who follow my channel already know, I have multiple wives. Naturally, this means I often get approached by brothers and sometimes even sisters asking me about polygamy. More specifically, Islamic polygyny, which basically mean a Muslim man marrying multiple women. I get all sorts of questions like what does polygyny entail, how to go about it, and how to maintain it in a balanced and sincere manner. So if you're genuinely interested in this topic and would like to explore this realm of things a bit further, please feel free to reach out to me on Telegram or email me. The links are in the description below. For a limited time, I'm offering free private consultation and discussion sessions. So inshallah, don't miss out on this opportunity. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.